Hello, guys, and welcome to our very last week of school for fourth grade. We made it. This isn't how any of us thought we would make it, but we made it. So we are going to introduce our last genre for the year, and we are going to do Unit 10. We're skipping the skills week because we only had 1 week of school left, and we wanted to get to the genre week. So Unit 10 genre is Fables. Most of you are somewhat familiar with what fables are, even though we didn't really study this genre yet in fourth grade. You've probably heard of it, or we've read little stories of it throughout the year. So it's probably not that new to you, but it's an important one. So it's one we wanted to make sure that we covered. Okay, you should have just watched a video that introduced fables to you, reminded you of what they are. It mentioned Aesop, the most famous fable writer, gave you different features and characteristics of fables. So that last video you just watched should help you with what we're doing this week. In that video, it mentioned 3 very famous fables. It showed little pictures of them. It mentioned the tortoise and the hare, the fox and the crow, and lion and mouse. So I'm going to share those 3 fables with you. And while I share those with you, I want you to be thinking of the features and characteristics of fables that they mentioned in that video and trying to pay attention and notice them. And also be thinking, what is the moral or the lesson? So in that one they did, when they showed you the moral at the end and talked to you about how that was a lesson, that should have jogged some of your memories. If you remember earlier in the year when we were working on TDAs, one of the earlier TDAs we did this year was called The Greedy Dog. And do you remember that we talked about how that was a fable? And so it was basically, you should have made a text-to-text connection there of the video you just saw and the Greedy Dog TDA that we did a while ago. So anyway, I want you to listen to these 3 and be thinking, okay, what features am I noticing? Thinking about the talking animals and how someone learns a lesson, someone is taught a lesson, and think what the moral might be. So as you're hearing it, think, what's a lesson I could learn from this fable that I could apply to my daily life? Not just not a main idea. Remember, a main idea is not the same thing as a moral or a lesson. A lesson or a moral is something that we could apply to our lives. That doesn't have specifically to do with that story, just something we could use at any point. Okay, the first one they mentioned, the tortoise and the hare, is, I would say, probably the most famous fable out there. And remember, tortoise is a turtle and a hare is a rabbit. That's one we've heard before, right? But still, I'm going to share that one with you first, since it was mentioned in the video and since it's the most famous. Remember, pay attention for the features and think about what you think the moral is. A hare mocked a tortoise for his slow manner. The tortoise promptly challenged her to a race, and the hare quickly agreed. They began, and soon the hare left the tortoise way behind. Midway through the race, she became bored and began to snack on some leafy grass. The noonday sun was glaring in the sky, and Hare grew quite warm. Seeing she was so far ahead, she found a shady spot and went to sleep, knowing she could always catch the tortoise. Meanwhile, he plugged along in his slow way, passing and then overtaking the sleeping hare. The hare, having overslept, awoke from her nap and realized the tortoise had passed her by. She took off at full speed, but run as fast as she would, she could not catch up. The tortoise reached the finish line first and won. All right, I'm sure you noticed the characteristics there where there's talking animals and that the animals are like people and things like that. So what is the moral? What would you say the lesson of this story is? Now's when you would turn and tell a friend at school. Okay, here's the message, the moral that Aesop wrote. Slow and steady wins the race. So notice, they didn't say a turtle can beat a rabbit. That's not a moral. That's not a lesson that you could apply to your daily lives, right? But slow and steady wins the race. That's something you could apply. Maybe you sometimes feel like you have an assignment and it's just too large and you don't know what you're going to do. Even like with all this online schooling, maybe some days you looked at everything you had to do for the week and thought, I can't, it's too much. But then Slow and steady wins the race. So some of you just plugged away at it, did a little bit each day, didn't get too burnt out, and by the end, you did it all. So that's one way we could apply slow and steady wins the race in our lives. And there's lots of ways we could apply it. Okay, the next one might not be as easy to pull the moral out of, and that one is the fox and the crow. That was the other one that was the second one that was mentioned in the video. A fox invited a crow to dinner, at which the only food he provided was a large, flat dish of soup. The fox lapped it up with great relish, but the crow, with her long bill, tried in vain to eat the tasty broth. Her distress caused the sly fox much amusement. But not long after, the crow invited him to dinner in return and set before him a pitcher with a long and narrow neck into which she could get her bill with ease. Thus, while she enjoyed her dinner, the fox sat by, hungry and helpless, for it was impossible for him to reach the tempting contents of the pitcher. All right, what do you think the lesson or the moral of that fable is? Think about it for a second. All right, I will tell you the moral that Aesop has written in here in this book of Aesop's Fables. And you think if it's the same one that you came up with or something similar anyway. Those who play jokes on others must expect them in return. So that's a good moral, I think, that we can certainly apply to our lives. Like, hey, if you're going to be tricking other people, then you should expect that to happen back to you. That's a good moral. That's a good lesson to learn. But remember, the lesson or the moral can't be you shouldn't serve your guests in dishes they don't like, or dishes they can't eat out of. It can't be specific to the story. It has to be an in general lesson you could apply to your life. Okay, and one more, the lion and the mouse. That was the third one that was mentioned in that video you just saw to introduce this lesson. The lion and the mouse. A lion, asleep in his lair, was awoken by a mouse running all over his face. The lion seized it and was about to kill it. But the mouse begged for his life. "Please let me go," it cried, "and one day I will repay your kindness." The idea of such a small creature ever doing anything for him amused the lion so much that he laughed and let it go. But the mouse's chance came after all. One day, the lion got entangled in a net which had been spread by some hunters. The mouse recognized his roars and ran to the spot, and it set to work to chew on the ropes and succeeded in setting the lion free. "There," said the mouse, "you laughed at me when I promised I would repay you, but now you see, even a mouse can help a lion." All right, easy to see all the features and characteristics mentioned in that one, but what about the moral? Think about what the moral, the lesson of this one is. Okay, here's what we have. No good deed goes unrewarded. So it's saying you're always rewarded for your good deeds, or you're always rewarded for your kindness. That's the moral. Okay, those are just the three I wanted to share with you. If you enjoy reading fables, this lesson has the next two follow-ups have a few different fables you can read, pull out the features, think of the morals, compare and contrast. They're short stories, so they're nice reads. So I think you'll enjoy the two follow-ups this week after this one. Also, if you like watching, if you type in Aesop's Fables on YouTube, there's tons of fables there that you can watch, and you can think about what the moral is as you watch them as well. All right, so reach out to Mr. Shiflett and I if you have any questions with your follow-ups or with the exit ticket for this. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that worked so hard this year. This was a strange ending to our fourth grade year. This is something you'll never forget, I'm sure. But some of you, I was so impressed with every single week, turning in every single assignment and not just putting a word down, but actually really trying. So those of you that really gave it your all, we noticed it and we appreciated it. And thank you very much. And have a wonderful, wonderful summer, everybody. Bye.